Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. So going down this weekend is UFC Abu Dhabi, Magomed Ankalaev versus the Hitman Bogdan Guskov. This fight was originally supposed to be Magomed Ankalaev versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. Khalil ended up pulling out because he had an injury, which was unfortunately because that fight was going to be a banger. Well, now we got Bogdan Guskov, which I think it's a decent main event. Not the greatest for sure. But, I can definitely see, Guskov getting him some trouble. But then, we got the co-main event here. Steve Erceg versus Razazan, which is going to be a pretty good fight. We got Islam Duotov versus Wellington Thurman, which is, it's an okay fight for the card. Damian Rzepecki versus Chanko. Chanko making his debut, man. It's going to be an interesting fight. Rizvan Kuniev making his return against Tyrell Fortune, which is going to be a banger as well. We got Abark Yaki versus Saygid making his return. Overall, man, this card is a decent card. Not the greatest card, not the worst card. I give it like a 6 out of 10 at most on paper. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting card. Low key, this is going to be a pretty interesting card. Alright, without any further ado, let's get into the video. Make sure to hit the like, subscribe button, and we are going to get into these predictions. Up first here, in the bantamweight division, first fight of the night is Abdul versus Cody Gibson. Now, this was originally, I forgot the guy's name, but I was going to favor that other guy to beat Hudson, but now that's Cody Gibson. This is a decent matchup. Cody Gibson, his last 5 fights, losing to Miles Jones. I guess that's okay. Not bad. Brian Kilari, okay, it's an okay win. Got the submission. Chad El Hurry, that's all right too. Losing to Damian Blackshear, which is all right, but to get submitted by Damian Blackshear is not the greatest because Damian Blackshear, we saw him get out grappled by Davey Grant, so that's a little bit concerning. And then most recently losing to Richie Long, which I guess that's a good loss, low key. But Abdul Hudson, outside of the UFC, he's looking like a huge guy, a huge prospect. Getting his knockout over this guy named Samoto. This guy over Eduardo Mora with a choke. Getting the win over Sammy Yaza. Getting the win over Grift Walker. Most recently getting a win over Tyson Name. And Tyson Name is pretty well experienced for. But now, this the problem here that I have is that Cody Gibson isn't really the most active fighter on the roster. He's well experienced, I get that. But if we're talking, but he's not the most. Cody Gibson is kind of an explosive striker. He's not the most skilled fighter. But Abdul Hudson isn't really the most skilled fighter either. He's a very good grappler with a good striking base though. This is and listen, I know that this guy Tyson Mom, whatever, I don't really know who he is, but for what we've seen from the record, it shows that he's pretty well experienced for MMA. So that was a pretty good win, and getting the knockout in that fight. And Tyson Mom did also, have some experience in the UFC. But he had like about 8 fights, lost his last two. The last 2 fights that he had in the UFC did get cut from the UFC. So he had some experience with a guy who had about over 5 fights in the UFC. And against Cody Gibson, who I think this is his 11th fight in the UFC, which is crazy. So yeah, this is about his 11th fight in the UFC, but his resume, he's had some good fights. He's had some ups and downs, but if we look at the record, man, he seems like he should have been cut like years ago, man. But he kind of just puts on these entertaining fights, so the UFC just kind of lets him, not to say do whatever. Don't get it twisted. I just think they kind of just, let him, have these fights in the UFC because he's such super entertaining. And I can definitely see Cody Gibson giving Abdul Hudson some trouble, like with the on the feet. With example, he's a pretty explosive striker. We saw that in his most previous fight against Tyson Nam. Tyson Nam did get him have him struggle on the feet a little bit. He's a good striker. Abdul is a good striker, but he does sometimes quietly struggle with fighters who have explosive striking like Cody Gibson. But when it comes to like the grappling for Cody Gibson kind of just he kind of gets submitted quite pretty easily. I don't want to say he gets submitted, but he kind of has a lot of trouble when it comes to these huge grapplers. Richie Long definitely mixed it up some of the grappling in that fight with But I'm gonna make this a pretty quick one. I'm gonna go with Abdul Hudson on this one, guys. I think Abdul Hudson is going to get a decision win. I think he could definitely mix it up with some takedowns, but he's not gonna submit Cody Gibson. Cody Gibson, he gets tired, but also quite frankly, he doesn't try and give up. He tries to lock in and win the fights. You'd have to knock him out for you to lose, for you to win the fight. I don't see Hudson really knocking him out like that. I know Richie Long did, but I think Richie Long definitely has a little bit more power than Abdul Hudson coming in this fight. And this is Hudson's debut as we're speaking. I think this is going to give him a pretty big trouble. I can definitely see Abdul, giving a lot of these prospect bantamweights a tough time. But yeah, I'm going to favor Abdul Hudson in this matchup here. Yeah, so give me Hudson to win this one a by decision. Next up, we got a pretty interesting matchup here. Nurullo Aliev versus Mike Davis. Now, this is a very interesting fight. If we take a look back at their last 5 fights, Davis beating Mason Jones, which is a huge win in my opinion, because Mason Jones, honestly, one of my favorite prospects in the UFC today. Beating Yarkachev, Borkachev, I still do not know how to pronounce the guy's name. That's an okay win. Beating Natan Levy, which is with a rear naked choke, not bad. Beating Farazim, which is a good win as well, which is a good loss as well. Even I know Farazim just got fraud checked by Tom Nolan, but Tom Nolan is a good striker and definitely has some grappling. And then most recently beating Mitch Ramirez, which is an okay win. We just saw Mitch Ramirez get submitted by Chase Hooper after all. Aliev outside of the UFC beat Krill. Nakatunov beating winning his contender series run against Josh Wick. Beating Rafael Alves, which was a pretty good fight. Beating Joe Solecki, which is an okay win. Most recently beating Shamrock. His last 3 opponents, in my opinion, are all solid oppositions, to be very clear. And Shamrock, I think he just got cut from the UFC most recently. Aliev is an okay, decent fighter. He's a good prospect. I get why he's the favorite for this fight. But against a guy like Mike Davis, because Mike Davis has some grappling. Listen, man, this man, I don't know if you guys don't remember this, but he fought Gilbert Burns way early in his career. So in my opinion, he's had the better competition. Like I feel like all of these guys in general are decent competition. Like I even think Borkachev is more of a better competition than all of his wins right here. Mason Jones definitely a better competition. Natalie Levy, now there's argument where that's not his better competition, but his last fight, as far as him, even Mitch Ramirez, he beat him in his own game, knocking him out. Mike Davis is a good fighter, but the problem is I have here, he's not that active, guys. He's really not. And I don't know what's been going on, but like if you look at here, 5 years where he fought Mason Jones. Then in a fight after that 5 years, he fought Yaroslav Borkachev, which was 3 years ago. 2 years ago beating Natalia. About a year ago beating Farazim, losing to Farazim, and about a year and now so almost a year and a half losing to Farazim, and about a year since he beat Mitch Ramirez. So he's not that active at all. And we look at Aliev, 3 years ago beating Rafael Alves, and he did kind of have that layoff a lot. Then he came back and beat Joe Solecki, and then fought 7 months ago. So he, in my opinion, a bit more active than Mike Davis. But if we do look back at Royal last fight against Shamrock, he did have struggled with the strike and pace against Shamrock. And I think Mike Davis is more of a better striker than Shamrock. I think definitely we don't see Mike Davis gas out like that a lot. He sometimes has pressured on. He's mainly a lot of times pressured on the feet. Definitely has good takedown defense. Definitely can stuff the takedowns a lot. And I think we may look back, Farazan, but I just think stylistically, Farazan was just a bad matchup for Mike Davis. You guys may say how he has the listen. Farazan had the better Muay Thai with the elbows. He had him struggle a lot. That was just a bad matchup coming into that fight for Mike Davis. And like I said, I know he lost to Tom Nolan and all that other stuff, but like that was a pretty competitive fight. He didn't just get absolutely dominated, even though he was the favorite for the fight. It was a pretty close fight. That Tom Nolan had a good game, but you guys got to realize, even though he lost to Tom Nolan, anything is possible. You can win fights, man, and that was just, that wasn't just Farzian's greatest night for him. And I think stylistically, it was also his coaches too. His coaches didn't give him the best advice for that fight. And look who he's in the gym now. He's in the same gym as Justin Gaethje. But Aliev, I think Aliev has the better chance here on the ground with the grappling. If he doesn't shoot a lot of takedowns in this fight, he's going to get pieced up on the feet no matter what. His striking base is like a 5 or maybe a 6 when it comes to the strike. His kicks are good though. Don't get it twisted. He just needs a little bit of a better boxing base, in my opinion. That's just something that he needs to change. And yeah. Now, who do I got winning this fight? I'm going with the underdog. I think Mike Davis gets the second round knockout over Nurullo. And don't disrespect Nurullo. I like him as a fighter, man. These two of my favorite unranked fighters in the lightweight division right now. I just think stylistically this could be a bad matchup for Aliev. I think when it comes to like the boxing, when it comes to the takedown defense, I think stylistically it could be a bad night. He could win possibly a pretty competitive decision, but I'm going to go with Mike Davis to win by knockout. So yeah, that's what I'm going with, Mike Davis by knockout. Next up, in the light heavyweight division, we got up here is Brendson Ribeiro versus Magomed Tuchalov, if I even said that correctly. Now, listen, this right here is a decent fight for the card. And I think stylistically, this is a good matchup for Brendson Ribeiro. And listen, Magomed Tuchalov, I have not been really too impressed by him. He beat this Shamil guy, whatever, all that, blah, blah, blah. He beat this guy named Santiago, beating Khabib Gaziev, which is all right. This guy who named Dumosoy, Kyle Machado, I think he was most recently in the UFC. And you see right here, Kyle Machado, which was a split decision, which was a decent fight, beating Dara, which was honestly that was a good win. Not a lot of people actually thought that Brendson Ribeiro was going to win that fight. Then lost to Ismael Mirzakana, which, listen, guys, I know Paulo Costa just beat him, but that's not a bad loss whatsoever. Omar's side now, there's an upside down where that could be a bad win, could be a good win. Most recently lost to Abdul Yakiv, who just knocked out Julius Walker in 7 seconds. This man has had the better competition. Only good competition that Magomed has had is this fight with Kyle Machado. And if we just look, he's not the greatest grappler. He has a submission winner over this guy named Takaya, but he's not that good of a grappler either. Brendson Ribeiro is a decent fighter on the feet whatsoever, but he's not, but he's a fantastic grappler, and I feel like a lot of you guys are actually doubting him in this fight. Magomed Tuchalov is an okay fighter everywhere, a decent fighter on the feet, a not that good of a grappler. I think Brendson Ribeiro can have a chance of beating Magomed Tuchalov in this fight. And a few things I can see that he needs to do is feint the shots, and then go for and land the takedowns. That's what he does very well when he's at his best. Even in this fight right here with Darya, if I even said that correctly. He played that game very smart, landed the takedown, finding the submission, got the win. But against a guy like Tuchalov, I don't think if he does win, I possibly say a dominant decision here. Magomed needs to be very explosive on the feet, stuff a lot of those takedowns. If he sees a predictable, because sometimes Brendson Ribeiro do be having some of these predictable takedowns, which you're always gonna have predictable shots to take down at some point in your MMA career. Try and land those uppercuts. Try and land those nasty uppercuts that can definitely catch him off guard. He has been clipped multiple times before, but mainly from like hard hitters. Omar Sy getting KO'd by Omar Sy definitely could be a bad look. But his fight with Ismael Mirzakhanov, not bad. But yeah, low key guys, You guys may disagree with me if you guys even know who Tuchalov really is, because I've seen this man fight before. He's okay. He's not that nice. Yeah, I'm going to go with freaking Brendson Ribeiro on this one. I think Brendson Ribeiro is going to get a decision win over here, guys. Listen, this ain't a confident answer at all, because listen, if you pick, listen, picking Brendson Ribeiro is like picking life, or death, guys. You don't know if he's going to win, but I'm going to trust Brendson Ribeiro this time to beat Magomed Tuchalov. He possibly can get like a late round submission, but I think he's gonna win a pretty dominant decision here. I think majority of it's gonna come from that grappling. Give me Brendson Ribeiro by decision. Next up, in the lightweight division, Ismael Bonfim versus Alex Souza. Now this is an interesting fight for the lightweight division. Axel Souza, outside of the UFC, was looking very dangerous, beating this undefeated guy named Solin, getting this fight with Lucas Kyle, which is a good win, honestly. Beating this guy named Nurullo, Odile, got the UFC call, beating Ryan McKee, which was where he set that shot up very nasty. It landed clean to the body and knocked him out. Then had a very close fight against Mason Jones, which could have gone either way. Then we got Ismael Bonfim, who beat Terrence McKinney. Listen, I know we just saw Terrence McKinney lose to Bobby Green, but that's still a good win, knowing that flying knee was nasty. Then losing to BSD, which I know BSD just lost to Patty, but that's still a good win, low key. Beating Vince Perchel, if I even said that correctly, which is a decent win. Losing to Nazim Zarnikov and low-key, I'm starting to think that's an okay win because Nazim, man, just got TKO by Matuas Camilio, but yet again, we kind of underestimated Matuas Camilio a lot. Most recently losing to Chris Padilla. I know Chris Padilla had that draw most recently at UFC 327. I forgot the guy's name, but his three losses right here are all pretty good. But it's just the problem here I have for Ismael Bonfim that Ismael Bonfim is a aggressive striker with a good grappling base, but he tends to get hit a lot, and at this point, he's gotten hit a lot that he's going down pretty easily. Listen, against Chris Padilla. Chris Padilla, man, is a good aggressive fighter, but he doesn't consistently knock everybody out, man. He mainly just beats the crap out of them and just gets a decision win. So it's most likely that's a concerning knockout right there. Alex Souza, yeah, he did take a lot of damage against Mason Jones. Like, that was expected to be a war because Mason Jones is such a freaking warrior that he likes to go head to head, even though he goes head to head with some fighters who feel like he shouldn't be. But like Alex Souza, in my opinion, man, I think he's the next big thing for the lightweight division. That may be a lot of huge words because knowing that he lost to Mason Jones, but his two fights, Reich McKee, and that loss to Mason Jones, which could have gone either way. I think Alex Souza, in my opinion, is one of my favorite prospects in the lightweight division besides Mike Davis. This is going to be an interesting one because Ismael Bonfim, I think definitely he has a little bit of the advantage with the ground game and definitely attacking and trying to hurt him early, which I think that's where Mason Jones did get the win because he definitely was hurting Axel Sola early in that fight. But like Bonfim at this point gets clipped pretty easily. He does not move his head very well. I think stylistically this could be a very bad matchup for Bonfim in this fight. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to pick Souza. I'm gonna go knockout first round. I think he gets a brutal knockout early on in this fight. If it does, I feel like it could be a very competitive fight throughout how long the fight goes. But I think eventually he's going to get clipped very bad. First, second, or third round. Either way, I feel like he's going to get clipped eventually in this fight. Give me Axel Sola to win this one by knockout first round. Next up in the welterweight division, Santiago Ponzinibbio making his return fighting Sam Patterson. I'm not going to explain a little bit too much. Give me Sam Patterson to win this one by decision. Listen, I know he just had that boring fight with MVP, which he did run a lot in that fight, but that's not a bad loss, low key. And Santiago Ponzinibbio, his wins and losses are like this. It kind of just moves back and forth. As of recently, beating Alex Moreno, which at this point Alex Moreno should also retire if he has not. Kevin Holland, not a bad loss whatsoever. Beating Muslim, losing to Muslim Salikov, that's an okay loss. Cortel Harris, these are all decent losses. Most recently losing to D. Rodriguez, which he's going to fight Eurosmetic next week. These are all decent wins and decent losses, but I think at this point, like, he just does not have that fighting in him no more. I definitely think he could definitely explode early and definitely go on the inside, but yet again, I think Sam Patterson is going to try to keep this fight on the ground for as long as he can. I think he's going to win a pretty dominant decision. But the best performance I think I've ever seen from Sam Patterson is that fight with Trey Waters where he knocked him out brutally. But I think Santiago Ponzinibbio is just at this point done. I think Sam Patterson's going to get a pretty dominant decision win over Santiago Ponzinibbio. Give me Sam Patterson by decision. Next up, in the light heavyweight division, is Dustin Jacoby versus Mohamed Said. Now, Mohamed Said, for what I've seen from him outside of the UFC, beat Ali Falabi, who's undefeated, Asfar Bashinani, beating Leonardo Gamores, beating Valerie de Silva, most recently beating Luis Henrique de Silva. So his last 3 fights were fighters who, if you guys see by the record, have a lot of experience. His 2 other previous fights were fighters who were just undefeated against a guy like Dustin Jacoby, who fought the best, losing to Alonzo Menfield, which I thought at one point that was a terrible loss. But like Alonzo Menfield just knocked out Jamie Young in the first round, so low key that's a good win, a good loss. I mean, losing to Dominic Reyes, not bad. It's okay at this point. Then when a 3-fight winning streak beating Victor Penrino, which was a huge win, where I didn't think that was gonna happen, man. Knocked him out cold. Beating Bruno Lopez, which is a decent win. Most recently beating Julius Walker. So his last 3 fights were honestly his last 3. I feel like after these 2 losses to Dominic Reyes and Alonzo Menfield, he's on a good, nice winning streak right now. And against Mohamed Said, which I don't know if this is his actual opponent, because if you go on UFC stats, he says that he's supposed to fight this guy named Euron, who's 9-1. So I really got no idea who the heck he's fighting, man. Because it says on Tapology that's who he's fighting. I really don't know who is he really going to be fighting. But this is the opponent that they have on Tapology, so this is what we're going to go with. Mohamed Said has fought some decent competition throughout his career. I just think that Dustin Jacoby is going to be stylistically a bad matchup for him. I think Dustin Jacoby is going to pressure early and eventually get the knockout. Listen, I feel like he should have knocked out Julius Walker in the first round, low key, but the referee just didn't stop the fight. But yeah, I just think that this stylistically is going to be a mad matchup for Mohamed Said. I think Mohamed Said is going to get clipped pretty early in this fight. He could definitely get knocked out in the first round. I'm going second for Dustin Jacoby in this fight. Next up, in the heavyweight division here, we got up here is Valter Walker versus Thomas Petersen. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing here. Give me Valter Walker to win by submission first round. This is very easy, low-key. Thomas Petersen, man, his last 5 fights, he beat Muhammad Usman, which is a decent win. Shamil Gazia, which we're losing to Shamil Gazia, decent loss. Dontel Mayes, most recently losing to Victor Penrito, and then also getting a win over Gabriel Pat, which I thought he was going to lose that fight. Valter Walker, losing to Lucas Barisca, which looked very bad. But then went on a nice 4 winning streak, beating Junior Tafa, beating Dontel Mayers as well. Most recently beating Kennedy Nakachinu, beating Louis Slutherland. This is what I don't get, guys. How did this man go from having a fight with Marcin Tybura, which, unfortunately he had to pull out because he had a leg injury, to now going to be fighting Thomas Petersen? Like, this makes no sense. Generally, the UFC, this makes no sense. Thomas Petersen is going to get submitted. And guys, low-key, this is my lock of the week right here. Lock of the week. We're going to start doing lock of the weeks, and Valter Walker is my lock of the week to beat Thomas Petersen. Stylistically, Thomas Petersen could get him trouble on the feet, but he's going to get submitted pretty easily. His grappling is not that good. Even against Pat, the grappling was decent in that fight. I don't think he's going to have too much success. Give me Valter Walker to win this one by a submission. Next up here in the welterweight division, Jacoby versus Saygid. I do not know how to pronounce his first name. I do not know how to pronounce his bro's last name. So we're just going to go with the first name and the last name that I actually know how to pronounce. This is honestly a very interesting fight. Saygid outside of the UFC was looking very good, beating Max Burnington, beating James Nachimicha, beating Limpy Zhang, whatever that guy's name is. Most recently beating Sheena Oyoki. Did have a terrible debut against Nicholas Delby, which I know on record it said the split decision, but majority of the time they were just clinching. They were just having a pretty boring clinch decision. And Yakiv outside of the UFC looked pretty impressive at the split decision over this guy. Lost his fight over Vitili. Uh, Slipenko beating Michelle Parzaris, beating LD Ardiyavov, beating Albert Tumanov. So I think this is a good fight, low key. Saygid, in my opinion, I liked him outside of the UFC. Outside of the UFC, he looked very good, especially when he had those 3 fights in the ONE FC. Those when I really started paying attention to him. But against a guy like Yakiv, man. Listen, Yakiv, in my opinion, is a very good, well-rounded striker. But majority of these times, he's getting these decision wins. He's a good striker. His most recent fights have all been his most recent wins have all been by decision, split decision. So he's had some pretty competitive fights here, and I don't think that Saygid can do what he did in that fight with Nicholas Delby, which was clinch majority of the fight. And I feel like he did that because against a guy like Nicholas Delby, who at this point I think is like 42 years old, and doesn't really have like the energy to keep consistently fighting like that. I think that's why Nicholas Delby was letting him. But against a guy who's I guess he's older than him, but against a guy who's still hungry, hungry training to be in the UFC, he's not gonna want to have a debut like how Saygid did it. Honestly, man, I thought they were gonna. Honestly, man, legit looking at that one performance, man, I really just thought the UFC was gonna cut him. I guess they're giving him one more chance against Yakiv, but this is gonna be a pretty competitive fight because I know Saygid did clinch a lot in that fight. But also, it was also Nicholas Delby's fault, just trying to consistently clinch. But I also think that this could be a pretty competitive fight between two well-rounded strikers from Russia. This is going to be an absolute banger fight. Yaki, what he needs to do in this fight, because I'm not mistaken, he's a shorter fighter. Try and make it a competitive fight with Saygid. Because Saygid, if you don't make it a pretty competitive fight for Saygid is just going to make it a pretty boring fight. So try to clinch, try to go and clinch on very early in the fight, and just keep the distance, make it a fire fight. Saygid needs to try and just keep his reach and not let Yakiv get close. He's gonna let eventually Yakiv's gonna get close, but like majority of the fight, try and just keep it on his range. I feel like that's what Saygid tries to do majority of the time throughout the fight. Definitely land the shots that he wants to in the fight. Time it, land some body shots here. I think this is going to be a pretty competitive fight here, but I'm going to go with Yakiv on this one, guys. I think Yakiv is the next big problem for the welterweight division, man. I remember he was supposed to fight that guy where, I forgot his name, man. I forgot who he was going to fight, but he was another guy making his debut from Russia. I think it was from Dagestan. I forgot his name, but I was going to favor that Dagestani guy to beat Yakiv, but now that he pulled out and it's going to be Saygid, I think this is going to be a pretty good fight. I'm going to go with a pretty competitive decision here. Give me Yakiv. Give me him to win this fight by a decision. I don't really think he's going to get a knockout coming into this fight. Next up, in the heavyweight division, Rizvan Kuniev versus Tyrell Fortune. This is where we get to the bangers here. Tyrell Fortune, looking at his last 5 fights, he lost to Sergey with a heel hook, which was not bad. Beating Marin Dennis, beating Tony Lopez, beating Demaro Dennis, most recently making his UFC debut, which was a slightly boring fight against Martin Tyburo. And then looking at Kaniev's last 5 fights, beating Anthony Hamilton, Ronan Ferrero, beating Hugo Kano, got his debut against Curtis Blades, which was a robbery. Should have won that fight. And most recently, having a boring decision over Joel Almeida, which was really not that good of a low key. Really not that good of a fight. Joel Almeida just kept hugging that entire time. So yeah, his two previous. Listen, man. I know these guys are heavyweights and they do hit a lot of very hard, but I'm not haven't been really impressed from their debut, from their recent fights in the UFC. Listen, I know Kuniev whatever, oh, this or that, he beat Curtis Blades, whatever, but that wasn't that competitive at all. That was quite boring. So against Joan Almeida, Tyrell Fortune, same thing. That's like Marcin Tybura. He was explosive in that first round, kind of just gassed out a little bit. So both fighters, like I said, not been very impressed by their last few fights. But outside of the UFC, though, like outside the UFC, they're looking very good. Kuniev having a lot of submissions, knockouts, how Fortune consistently just beating the hell out of people, knocking them out, either getting knocked out, submitted, whatever happens. So it's just been like a going on, mixing back and forth for both fighters. Kniev's more of a aggressive fighter who is quite tall, likes to be aggressive on the outside a little bit throughout fights. Tyrell Fortune, um, who kind of has very good success in the first and half the second round, eventually starts to get tired. It's a 50-50 fight, guys. I'm going back and forth on this one a lot. So some things I think Kuniev needs to do in this fight is try and survive the early output in this fight. With the heavy shots that Tyrell Fortune's going to be throwing very early throughout the fight, try and just avoid that. Once you see him gas out, start putting the pressure on him and start landing those takedowns. Because in my opinion, Kuniev is the better wrestler than Tyrell Fortune in this fight. Not and For Tyrell Fortune needs to attack that body. Needs to go body head early coming into this fight. I think he could also pressure him up against the cage, try and push him back against the cage, because that's what kind of we saw in his two fights with Curtis Blades and Joan Almeida. When they got him against the cage, he looked kind of nervous. He looked like he was trying to get out of there. So try and pressure him forward against the cage. Land those knees when he press him against the cage. Land those knees to the body. Land those elbows. Try and land those things that Conor McGregor was known for, where you just push him back with your shoulder, to try and put a lot of pressure and effect on him. That's what we saw, and that's what we saw a lot out with Kuniev outside of the UFC, where Kuniev just kind of had a lot of struggle with fighters who pressured, put him against the cage in a lot of these fights. But who am I gonna go for to win this fight? Low key, I'm gonna go with Tyrell Fortune on this one. I'm gonna go second round knockout. I think the first round he's definitely gonna have some trouble. I think eventually he's gonna catch Kuniev off guard in this fight. I think stylistically this is just a bad matchup for Kuniev. Listen, man. Listen, man. I've gone with a lot of I've already gone with like 3 underdogs on this card, low key so far. So, yeah. But I think I'm not saying this is my most confident one here, guys, because low key, man, Tao Fortune can kind of, he could, it's like, it's hard to trust what he can do, especially at his age, being 36 years old, almost 37. Yeah, I'm kind of, in a disagreement on what if I would pick him or not, but I'm gonna trust Tyrell Fortune to get the second round knockout in this fight. Give me Tyrell Fortune by knockout. Next up, this is probably the most interesting fight on the card. Damian Rzepecki versus Chunko. I do not know how to pronounce his full name, so I'm gonna just call him by Chunko for what we all know him for. Finally making his debut. Now, but before we get further into the predictions, if you guys are enjoying the content, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button, turn on notifications. Well, without any further ado, let's get back into the predictions. Chunko. For what? Well, I'm gonna just start off by saying this: is he banned from? If you guys, I don't know if this is true or not, but let me know if he's banned from America, cause I don't know why. Cause after that whole incident, I think he had in New York City, I think it was with Dylan Dennis. I think he got suspended from America. I want some of you guys to answer that, but back into the video. This is an interesting fight because Chunko, looking at his last 5 fights, he beat Timra Elavakov, beating Erickson, Markbeck Ul, beating William Poles, beating Shukmor, Yakadov, most recently having that very good fight against Lucas Caldis in Dana White's Contender Series. Then we got Damon Rebeshki, no, not Rebecki, who beat Estabil Amato beating Georgi Elastavian. I think this is one of the most interesting fights because we all know Chanko for his wild Muay Thai boxing style with good grappling. And for what we see from a lot of Dagestani fighters nowadays, that some of the back then there were a lot of grapplers. Now we see the strikers, the grapplers, man. And I think it's gonna be a good fight because Damian, he's a good grappler as well for what we've seen, and has good kickbox and has good Muay Thai too. Has the Polish power as comes from Poland, so has that Polish power. So this is gonna be a huge good fight, especially that Magomed is already popular because they call him John Pork or whatever, which that's not really what that's not really it's Chanko, but this is gonna be an interesting fight because Chanko, man, he could get in these wild exchanges. If we look back at his contender series fight against Caldas. There were times where Caldas was definitely piecing him up, but I feel like we also gave him the win because Caldas kept cheating, bro. He was playing that fight dirty, eye poking him, hitting him in the balls, bro. So that's what kind of gave him that advantage. And Damian Rzepecki's last fight against this guy named Larkas, that was a very good fight, man. Look, so this I think listen, I'm gonna call this right now, fight of the night, right here. I've been starting to do that right now. Fight of the night. This is what's gonna be fight of the night. Damian Rzepecki versus Magomed versus Magomed Chanko. So yeah, but what I've seen is that Magomed does have Magomed, like I said, has these nasty elbows, throws these nasty boxing combinations. Damian Rzepecki definitely throws a lot of jabs. Those knees to the body, knees to the head that are just very nasty. They're just very nasty in fights. It also has these very good calf kicks. So does Magomed. With alongside both fighters have very good wrestling in this fight. And now I'm very excited. And a few things I can see that Damian Rzepecki needs to do in this fight is definitely, I'm gonna say definitely attack, use a lot of explode a lot coming into this fight with Chanko. Chanko definitely does struggle a lot. We saw that, like I said, in his fight with Caldas and previous fights on the original scene as well. And Magomed just needs to throw a lot of needs to throw boxing combinations, try and close the distance because Damian Rzepecki does have a good long range. He does know how to keep that use that long range, keep just keep his distance throughout the fight. Magomed needs to come in, explode with boxing combinations, land those bodies, land the takedowns. This is gonna be a stylistically good fight all the way around. But who am I gonna favor to win? I'm gonna go with Chanko on this one, guys. I think Chanko's gonna win a close, competitive 29-28 decision. It's gonna be a fun fight. It's gonna be a very fun fight all night. I think that Chanko's just going to be a little more explosive fighter throughout the fight. I think his grappling's a little bit better in this fight. But Damian Rzepecki could definitely pull the upset and take away Chanko's O. But I'm going to go with Chanko to win this one by a decision. Next up, in the welterweight division, Islam Dulatov versus Wellington Thurman. You don't even got to tell me twice. Islam Dulatov is going to beat Wellington Thurman. This is not a close fight whatsoever. Wellington Thurman hasn't fought in about almost 3 years, bro. 3 years and lost to Jared Gooden, which is not even that good of a win. Those previous lost before that beating Randy Brown. Andre Peroshkin, Can. Uh, Last time winning over Misha, which is alright. Yeah, Islam Dulatov looked very good against Adam Fugan. I can't believe they're actually throwing this matchup in against him. Thurman's going to get absolutely packed to the ground. Give me Islam Dulatov to win this one by knockout. Next up, in the flyweight division, Steve Erceg versus Ramazan Temirov. Now, this is 50-50 right here. This could also be potential fight of the night. Just letting you know this right now. Ramazan Temirov outside of the UFC beating El Car with a ground and pound. Yurtra beating Soyo, getting his UFC debut over CJ Vergara, which is an okay debut, beating Charles Johnson, which was a decent win. I remember he was supposed to fight Ashul Albayev back actually last year in Abu Dhabi for a fight night. but he pulled out. I think he had an injury, and he didn't fight after that injury. So he's been pretty. He's been out for quite a while now. Steve Ursay losing to Alexandro Pantoja, losing to Kai France, losing to Brandon Moreno, making his bounce back over Odie Osborne, beating Tim Elliott, which I hated that Tim Elliott loses this fight. I was very confident that Tim Elliott was going to win this fight. But listen, if we just look back at that fight with Tim Elliott, he got his butt whooped that first round. It just Tim Elliott used all of his cardio, and it eventually just caught up to him in the later rounds. But I think if the cardio wasn't a huge problem for Tim Elliott in that fight, he would have destroyed Steve Ursay, man. And listen, I'm not a huge fan of Steve Ursay. I really ain't, man. He's a good fighter, good all the way around fighter, and I thought, I'm gonna be very real with you here. Him and Pantoja was a close fight. I thought Steve Ursay won this fight, man. I thought he was. I hate to break it to you guys, but I thought Steve Ursay won that fight against Pantoja. But Ramazan on the feet, he's definitely a decent fighter on the feet, low key. But I feel like the grappling is what's gonna play a big part in this fight. And listen, this could be an easy night for Steve Ursay, low key. Cause stylistically, man, he's got the best thing he has is the grappling. This man fought Alexandre Pantoja, you guys. And yeah, he defended majority of those takedowns. Got back up quite easily throughout that fight. And Loki, you guys, I want to know, should I make a video on scoring Pantoja versus Ursay without any bias? Let me know in the comments before comments. But yeah, I think stylistically, Steve Ursay is good with somebody who's a decent striker, a good striker, but doesn't have too much power in their hands, and a good grappler, like a pure striker. Like I know Tim Elliott was a pure striker, but like a pure striker with good cardio on the feet. I think those are good matchups. Those are bad matchups for Steve Ursay. Good matchups where he could definitely win are just grapplers and who are decent strikers. We lost to Brandon Moreno, but Brandon Moreno is consistently knock people out. Like Kai France, I think stylistically that Kai France was just a huge, really bad matchup for Steve Ursay. I think definitely this is a great matchup coming into this fight for Steve Ursay. But I just don't see. I'm gonna go with Steve Ursay on this one, guys. I think Steve Ursay stylistically is just going to run through him pretty easily. I think that boxing is going to be too much. He has very good takedown defense. I still think Steve Ursay eventually could become a world champion. Still, he's only 30 years old, man. And yeah, I think stylistically it's going to be a bad matchup for Ramazan. Give me Steve Ursay to win this one by decision. And now we got up here in the main event. Magomed Ankalaev versus Bogdan Guskov, a.k.a. the Hitman, a.k.a. Anthony Smith Jr. Now, to be very real with you guys, this is not a good matchup. This is a decent fight. Listen, I know Ankalaev was originally supposed to fight Khalil Roundtree. And I was going to go with Khalil Roundtree on this one, guys. Yes, I was going to go with Khalil on that one. But Khalil got injured, unfortunately, which was going to be a banger of a fight. Now we got Guskov. We look back at his last 5 fights. He beat Zach Padargo, beating Ryan Spann, which is a good win, actually. Beating Billy Elaconda, good win. Beating beating Nikita Krylov, nasty knockout. Most recently, I had a draw with Jan Blachowicz, which I thought he won this fight, low key. I thought Bogdan Guskov won a 2-1 matchup, pretty competitive fight. We look at Ankalaev's last 5 fights. He lost to Johnny Walker. The no contest with Johnny Walker. Beat Johnny Walker in the rematch. Beat Alexander Rakic in a pretty dominant decision. Most recent win, winning the belt, pulling the upset against Alex Pereira, and then getting knocked out brutally in the rematch by Alex Pereira. Listen, I know some of you guys are going to say, oh, I think Guskov could get the knockout against Ankalaev because Alex Pereira's already knocked him out, and this man's already got submitted by Paul Craig. First off, if we look back at that fight with Paul Craig, he was whooping the heck out of Paul Craig. He made one wrong mistake that got him submitted. And against Alex Pereira, listen, man, Alex Pereira didn't come in that fight injured. And, yeah, he was a strike. He didn't land the takedowns against Alex Pereira. Because in that first fight, he was out striking Alex Pereira. And then, the rematch, he thought he could do the same thing. Alex Pereira proved that he was injured in that fight. And listen, guys, I know you guys are saying that, that he would have beaten Khalil with the wrestling. Would he have, though? This man couldn't even take down Alex Pereira, not even in both fights. What makes you think this man couldn't take down Johnny Walker? The man couldn't take down Anthony Smith. What makes you think that he would have beaten Khalil Roundtree? He would have gotten knocked out cold. Anyways, back to this fight. I don't really see a lot of things for Guskov to win because his wrestling is decent, but he's not the greatest. He's not that good of a wrestler. He got taken out a few times and was struggling with the takedowns against the first fight with Jan Blachowicz. And yeah, other than that, I feel like he had some decent matchups. His win over Nikita Krylov, low key, is his biggest win over his career, and that win over Ryan Spann and that win over Ryan Spann and Billy Anaconda. These are his three biggest wins. And listen, man, I think this could definitely be a good fight. He could definitely pull the win. But what he likes to do is that he likes to move around, find that chin. Ankalaev isn't really that aggressive. He's more of a technical guy. Likes to find his pace. And that's why I thought he was going to lose to Khalil Roundtree Jr. But against a guy who's quite technical, he kind of just waits for the knockout. Against a guy like Guskov, I think stylistically this could be a bad matchup for Guskov in general. I think it's going to be a hype fight because low-key, looks like Anthony Smith already fought Ankalaev and Ankalaev knocked him out. But I feel like what Guskov needs to do, because what we've seen is that him checking a leg kick in general from Ankalaev isn't really that good. Couldn't check those didn't know how to defend those leg kicks against Johnny Walker. Those two fights with Alex Pereira, that fight with Jan Blachowicz. So he needs to attack those legs early to slow him down. Because once those legs are gone, he can't move the same way he does. So that's when Guskov could get a little bit aggressive in that fight with Magomed Ankalaev. But yet again, Guskov does have the longer reach by 1 inch. So Guskov should try and control the distance. And when he does see, because sometimes Ankalaev does like to come in when his hand's pretty low, especially when he sees the right moment. So if I were you, I would catch one of those clean straight right hands that he threw against, especially that one that he did against Nikita Krylov, man. That was he set that up very nice. He definitely has I definitely think Guskov has good fight IQ, and I can definitely see he gives some Ankalaev some problems here. But I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev on this one, guys. I just cannot go against him, man. In this fight, listen, low-key, if Guskov pulls that off, he's getting the title shot against Carlos Ulberg. This is a title eliminator, possibly, against Carlos Ulberg. Yet again, Dana White just said that there's probably going to need an interim title shot because of the whole ACL injury with Carlos Ulberg. But I'm going to go with Ankalaev on this one, guys. But that's going to be the end of the video, you guys. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. Turn on notifications when you guys want to see what I upload. Comment down below who you guys got winning for these fights, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm out. Peace.